Guru Nation, welcome back to another In the Car, In the Truck episode. I got asked a comment slash question that I think would make a really good in-depth, just me giving my thoughts on this. So it's, how does a CRC become a CRA? Assuming you don't have CRA experience, but you've been a CRC. The answer is transferable skills. So, you gotta keep a couple things in mind. Just because this is what a CRC means at your institution doesn't mean that's what a CRC means at every institution. I know sites that have their coordinators do everything, my own included. Yuma Clinical Trials, they do regulatory, they do source, they do recruitment, they create the source, they enter the data, they even get involved in helping me select studies. They even get involved in the feasibility process. They even get involved, some of them, in invoicing. They at least assist me with that. So they're generalist coordinators. These are coordinators that do it all. They even help me with something very important I'm about to mention, quality assurance. So, that being said, not every site is as awesome as mine. Some sites streamline the hell out of everything. So they'll only have people doing regulatory. They'll only have people doing data entry. They'll only have people calling patients and scheduling patients. They'll only have people seeing the patients. That's all they do. These things I mentioned, that's the only things they do. So, the more you're doing, the better off your transferable skills are going to be in the eyes of a prospective employer. That's why I set this up, because not every CRC does the same thing. You and the employer is not a mind reader. Not only do they not have that skill set, they don't have the time to figure out, oh, well, this person worked at this site, and this is how they operate, and then this other one worked at this site, this is how they operate. You need to make that easy for them. Remember, you are presenting yourself as a commodity, as an asset to the prospective employer. You have to make it easy for them. They're not mind readers. They're also going through, it's a lot more competitive than you think. There's not just CRCs applying to be CRAs. There are project managers applying to be CRAs. There are in-house CRAs applying to be CRAs. There's remote site monitors. There's study startup specialists. There's all kinds of people and positions applying to be CRAs. So what you got to do is make the decision easy for them on paper. What you want to do is get your foot in the door. You want to get, first step, get that interview scheduled. So that means the resume, the CV, needs to list transferable skills that CRAs do on a day-to-day basis. That means you can't be lazy and just send your resume as it is, as a CRC. You've got to reverse engineer what it is that a CRA does, specifically a CRA with the job responsibilities from the job description. And you've got to literally make those responsibilities and duties your skill set. They have to be the same thing. Now, you're not going to lie, but you got to know yourself. We got to go back to the age-old philosophical question, know thyself. How well do you know your job? What do you actually do? Is there anything in your current day-to-day responsibilities that is similar in any way to a CRA? So let me tell you, with my staff I have here at Yuma Clinical Trials, the longest tenured coordinator I have is 1.5 years. She's going on 2 years. The shortest tenured coordinator I have is going on 2 months. They've all done everything I've mentioned already, but they've even done quality assurance, quality control, however you want to call it. They've prepared each other, they've prepared their colleagues, their peers, for monitoring visits. So what does that mean? Hey, today you're going to pretend you're a monitor, and I want you to look at the EDC, and I want you to look at our source, and I want you to look at our regulatory, and I want you to look at our investigational product, and I want you to find issues. I want you to do a monitoring visit. We do this regularly at our site, especially to prepare for monitoring visits. What are we actually doing? We're monitoring. What kind of job are you applying for? A monitor. I think it would be a good idea to put that skill set on your resume. So the way you would put that is, you could literally write it out. Conducted routine monitoring visits internally for my peers under the supervision of my site director. Now, let's say you're at a site where you don't really get to do that. Like, you're not as cool as Yuma Clinical Trials. There's a lot of sites that do allow their coordinators to do this out of necessity. Like, I recognize as an employer it's a good idea to have my coordinators do this for their professional development, but it's also a good idea for me to make sure we have some quality control in place and we have extra set of eyeballs on the study. It doesn't hurt. If you're at a site where they don't do this, you have to figure out, push the edges of your responsibilities until they start bleeding into CRA responsibilities. And you may have to, like some companies, you may have to push harder than others. But they're there. Even if all you did was data entry, you have experience with EDC systems, you have quality control on the EDC. There's probably a process at your site for how to enter data correctly. That's a transferable skill. Now, you're not as likely to get the CRA job as another CRC who's done everything. Regulatory, IP, study startup, source. Like, you're a little behind. You're a lot behind. But that's still a transferable skill. So my point is, you are doing these things. You cannot be lazy and just use your same resume and click buttons and assume that no one's applying and assume that the person who's reading your CV is a mind reader and knows how your company works. Because sites are so different. Sites are so diverse. Not all CRCs are built the same, and not all CRCs do the same thing across companies. So that's your job. And then cover letter or no cover letter, I don't really care. I'm always the school of thought, if you really want the job, write a very unique, customized cover letter for that particular position. Don't make it generic. Don't make it, I'm passionate about changing patients' lives. Make it something specific about that company, about that role that you are applying for. And yeah, it's a lot more work. But the question asked me, what's the best likelihood and probability for a CRC to be a CRA? This is how you put your best foot forward. Now, when you actually get the interview, you want to demonstrate these things verbally. So they're going to be asking you a series of questions. If the interview progresses far enough, they're going to start asking you situational, so the STAR method, situation, task, action, result. Because they want to see how you can translate in a practical way what you've done at your current role as a CRC into a CRA. So they might ask you things like, how did you deal with deviations? Or give me an example of a time where the site committed a deviation and you were involved in cleaning it up, or you were involved in rectifying it. Those are the type of questions they could ask, and there's no real way to prepare because there are thousands of variations of these, what happened in this situation. Or sometimes it's open-ended, like they'll let you do it. So come prepared with like 3 to 5 of these situations. And this is where you could embellish a little, but if you've been a coordinator long enough, you don't need to embellish. You've lived through a lot of these situations. You are, the good news, CRCs make the best CRAs. The bad news, Not every job recruiter cares. They want the best person for the job at that time. That's what they're getting paid to do. So you need to make sure that you're helping them accomplish what they're paid to do. Make it easy on them. Guru Nation, good luck. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Bye-bye.